Welcome, friends. Today's channeling is a sort of Q&A time with the collective on the issue of child abuse, and specifically having to do with child sex trafficking, which is really big in the news at the minute, in part because of this film, Sound of Freedom, and also because it is fast becoming the biggest criminal enterprise in the world. So what I'm going to do is ask the collective, first of all, why someone would write into their life chart that they were going to be trafficked as a child. This to me is just unthinkable. I myself am a survivor of several forms of sexual abuse, including having been abused as a child by my father sexually, but to be handed off to multiple abusers in a single day, every day, until finally your body just gives out after a few years. This is just unthinkable to me. And if you look at it as a situation of, well, they were trying to, as people say, burn off some old karma, this is still a very, very dark path. And it's just hard for me to understand. So I'm asking the collective that, and then I'm asking as well, is it the child's life energies that the dark power structure is after? And the answer to that is no doubt yes. But how is that changing now that the earth is taking on so much more light? How is it changing now that so many people are beginning to ascend and are asking to understand about ascension and looking for ways to raise their vibration? It just seems to me to be the strangest sort of dichotomy, these two opposites running parallel to one another. So I'm going to bring in the collective, and I'm going to ask them to address both of these issues. So just sort of go into your heart space, go into your breathing for a moment, and the collective, this beautiful group of higher beings I channel, will be who you hear next. Oh, greetings, dear ones. We are very pleased to have this time to speak with you once again. And so, yes, our writer has put forth a few questions, and perhaps there are a number of you who have also asked these questions. What in the world? Who would plan this for themselves, and why? And what does the old crowd get out of it exactly? And so let's look at this first question. Who would put this into their life chart? And this is for those who agree that this is something that happens. If you feel that all of life is happenstance, that no one would ever ask on any level for such an issue, we would say this is understandable, because from the human viewpoint, from where you are now on the planet, it makes less than no sense to you that anyone would put themselves through such torture or see any point in it. And so what we are going to do now is take on the persona, as it were, of someone who has accepted this. And a number of us within the collective have, in any event, been slaves. And a slave can be exploited on any level, as you are aware. Particularly women and children are exploited badly while they are enslaved. And we don't use the term slave as a sort of cultural assignation, as if that label is all that person is, but as an enslaved person, they are put in a position to be told that is all they are from a very young age, and it is so that many do not survive for very long when taken in as children. First, understand that slavery has existed for many thousands of years, since the fall to the third dimension, because this is one of the ways in which the hierarchy exists in a state that it is able to exist in. If some people are made to feel hopeless, in fact, at least half the human race, if not the majority, is meant to feel utterly without advocate, without real representation within the power structure, without choices, without money and property, without a voice socially, culturally, or otherwise. This serves their purposes perfectly. Now, why would anyone volunteer to experience this, particularly as it is millions of people currently on the planet who are experiencing this at a time when the Earth is actually ascending? And so again, let's bring in this presence of this dear one who was herself enslaved. Namaste, dear one. And she speaks now to say, greetings, friends. I took on the life of an enslaved person several times in order to move my consciousness to a level that ran not purely in opposition to my outer environment, but well above that environment. What human beings are taught is to fight anything that they don't like, to try to shove it off the map of human experience. And I came in specifically to suffer in that way. Now I don't choose that any longer, and most who have come in on the third dimension have decided not to return, and this is a fact. If they are able to move forward, they will do so. But I came in with the intent and the expectation that I would be an enslaved person with no freedom, no voice, no choices, no life of my own except that which I was ordered into. And know that these persons exist in the very highest echelons of every culture on the earth, even that which is indigenous will at times play into this power structure in return for money or some other form of leveraging. It is not really any child's desire to be used this way. Once in a human body, many have said and thought to themselves, I chose wrongly. This is too much. I will not survive this. And yet in those moments in which the abuse occurs, many centuries of wrongdoing are erased as the person themselves takes on what they put upon others in any number of lives, or what they assented to, what they believed was all right. And in other instances, such as myself, they chose to move into the higher mind out of sheer necessity. We do not say that anyone deserves to be punished and to suffer, because this goes against universal law to willingly force another to suffer. And we don't force ourselves to do so. If we choose openly, there are many reasons why. We've only given you a few today. But understand that that which the soul desires for its own growth can appear to be very strange to the one who is looking at a situation from without. From my position as one who has suffered in this way, I am able to go to those spirits on the other side whom I myself abused or tortured in other lives, and assure them I have suffered as you have, and I understand now what I put you or your family or your children through. And this was not only wrong in the moralistic sense, but it created great unevenness in my vibration and meant that I needed to experience what I had put another through in order to exculpate or release or absolve that which I had committed in other lives. And so one might say that everyone has had a vast combination of life experiences. Now some only come in a few times. I have been in many times, as most of you have as well. Many times in an earth life. and seeking not retribution against myself or others, but to understand the depth of this duality that we willingly chose to experience for centuries. I would not say that I choose to experience it now. I would not say that at all. I would say that I am finished with the strange and uneven and very taxing and traumatizing world of duality. And again, most of you as well are probably well finished with the entire experience of living in a third-dimensional world that has been so divided between dark and light and good and bad, as people term them. Over time, you begin to understand there is only experience. There is only that energy which leads you either away from enlightenment or toward it, closer and closer each day. And for those who do not choose to live in the light, we would say this is your decision, but that the doors are closing, one might say, for the choice to be made to come into the light and to be there permanently. And this is a beautiful thing when one considers that the timing of Earth lives now coincides perfectly with the decision to either move up in vibration or to remain at a low vibration and risk sinking even further down. This is a moment of great empowerment either way, because one's decision determines one's path for an indefinite period of time. So as you look at those who are troubled and enslaved and not surviving the processes, most do not, we would say understand that by and large this was chosen by them. There are people who come in without a life chart, but most of these are not of the light. Those who are of the light tend to request a particular set of circumstances so that they might learn more. And so in these times of ascension, people are moving forward very, very quickly. And they are asking to rinse their souls free of the trauma that they induced in others. They are asking to rinse their souls free of the pain and the losses they caused not only themselves, but many around them in a number of lives. And the old way, the old paradigm, was to come in and to suffer for what one had done in other lives. And of course, this is ending now. So you won't see this any much more beyond this generation. This tendency to suffer in order to achieve growth. This is no longer a requirement, and this is no longer sought by those coming in now. Yes, some are still being trafficked at drastically young ages. This can occur. And yet again, this is the ending you are seeing of this sort of program, one might say, of self-correction, of learning the hard way. Humanity has chosen to move up. If you are on the New Earth timeline or joining it now, you will not suffer in this way. And so we return now the speaking moment to our friends in the collective, and we thank them for this opportunity. Namaste. Wonderful friends. We wish to say that in answer to our writer's question as to why the old power structure has used trafficking for so long, the trauma is of course something that they draw off of energetically as well as actually physically. So we don't go into great detail there. There is plenty of information available about their practices, but we will say that yes, this was a part of their schemes and a part of how they gathered the life energy of innocent children, which is potent, to say the least. But we will also say that these dark plans are, and dark actions are, digging them a far deeper hole than they could know, because as the light pours in, there will be definitive moments in which humanity begins to realize we can no longer allow this to continue, and no longer allow the overriding power structure, which not only sanctions, but very often generally runs the pedophile networks. So much of this is up to you, dear ones. Will you raise your vibrations to where Earth life becomes something entirely different from a place of enslaved children, exploited persons on all levels? Will you raise your vibration, your consciousness, to where the planet you live on will not tolerate any such behavior and moves out of duality as a way of establishing soul growth? Of course you can grow inwardly without violence, without trauma. The choice must be made. Make it now. We as a human race no longer need to suffer in order to grow on a soul level, in order to fulfill our earth missions. And we no longer need to support the old power crowd, as our writer calls them, by implicit or explicit support of the current political systems, turning a blind eye to their corruption, turning a blind eye to the fact that corporations control them, and corporations are often run secretively and engage in the worst conceivable enterprises. One could hardly call them enterprises. They are simply criminal behaviors. So we somewhat lay this at your feet, dear ones. If you do not agree that children or anyone should be exploited and traumatized and imprisoned and enslaved, we would say, how many people from your past have you forgiven today? How much of your own life, how much of your own life force and your own decisions have you forgiven? How much have you gone into your heart to decide to love and accept everyone? To move into the high heart and to refuse labels and judgment. To claim your God-Goddess status, your co-creator status. To cease to feel to be a victim because you see others victimized and find that traumatizing. You know that divine love is greater than any situation you could ever view. And you know that great love is pouring forth onto the planet now in ways that will revolutionize how all of you see yourselves and your lives. Those children are not alone. All of you growing up on a corrupt and troubled planet, you are never alone. So make it your decision, make it your business and your province to be the one to reach beyond being astounded at the blatant evils you see before you, and to accept even those darkest impulses which you yourself may have carried at some point, and rise above into that which the high heart recognizes as the only truth. You will have heard from the young people in the 60s that love is all there is. It is indeed. And so we send much love and many blessings, dear ones. We are with you always. Namaste.